Hey, what's going on, Who Dat Nation? And welcome to another edition of the State of the Saints podcast, where we talk New Orleans Saints. My name is TJ Jones, and I want to say thank you for checking out the podcast. I really do appreciate it. Well, Who Dat Nation, I guess you can't win them all, right?
Breeze almost, and he is picked by Jordan Lewis.
That's right, the New Orleans Saints, unfortunately, lose to the Dallas Cowboys by a score of 13-10. And to be quite honest with you, ladies and gentlemen, this is actually the first time I actually have done this show. And the Saints have lost. That's right, man. I have been doing this show since week 2 of the 2018 season. And every time that I do this show, I'm pretty happy because the Saints were on a 10-game winning streak during that time. So I never did a show where the Saints actually lost a game until today. Now, I want you all to think about this right now. I understand that the Saints lost to the Cowboys and we're upset because New Orleans Saints fans, we don't like the Cowboys, do we? We don't like the Dallas Cowboys at all. We don't like the attention they get for doing absolutely nothing, how the media just always flocks to them, how their owner is always in the news for all the reasons for except winning football games. We don't like that, do we? Look, I understand that, but wrap your mind around this. The Saints won 10 straight games, and they lost to a Dallas Cowboy team that was challenged by their owners, their city, the media, and the owner did every single thing he can do to try to inspire his team to beat the New Orleans Saints. He even went out and honored the 1993 Super Bowl championship Dallas Cowboy team. It's true. He went out and did everything he can do in order to try to galvanize his team. And you got to give credit what credit is due, whether you want to or not. They did a good job. They did enough to win this football game. After the game, quarterback Drew Brees, Sean Payton, and Michael Thomas spoke to the media.
Really good pass rush team. I felt like we didn't really find a rhythm for pretty much the whole game. I guess we may have had one decent drive, but for the most part, I felt like we were just didn't really find a great rhythm with what we were doing. Yeah, so credit to them.
Tip your hat to Dallas. I thought those guys did a good job tonight and, played a heck of a game, deserved to win the game. I thought we struggled really throughout the night having any consistency offensively. I thought we made enough plays defensively. We kind of felt like it would be a lower scoring game coming in. We just didn't do enough things, and that starts with us as coaches, the plan going in. There'll be a lot we watch on tape and, regret certain plays. But before I get into any of that, you really got to tip your hat to the way they played.
Was there anything they did scheme-wise, or that you didn't expect? Or
man, it was holding. It was holding for sure. It's kind of when you're running and you're getting pulled on. You got extremities and stuff. That get jammed and somebody weighing over you. It's kind of like, so. My job now is to make sure they can't hold me. I have to play more violent, I have to play more physical. I have to, I got to get stronger, whatever it takes, so they don't hold me. I got to, because I got to, at the end of the day, when the game's on line, I got to go win the game.
Before we break this game down, let's go ahead and talk about the elephant in the room, okay? It's painfully obvious that this game was by far one of the worst officiated games I have seen all season long. I'm not even just talking about the Saints game, and I'm not even just saying that because I'm a Saints fan. I watch every single NFL game that comes on television. I watch it with DirecTV Sunday Ticket. So I'm able to watch all of the games and watch how everything transpired. And I think I watched every game this season. And I'm going to be honest with you, this officiating was horrible. There were questionable calls all night long. But this was an officiating team that is not used to being together. The NFL, towards the end of the season, they give their referees letter grades. And the individuals that have the higher letter grades, they become a part of the all-star referee team. It's almost like if you do your job so well, like a player go to the Pro Bowl. Well, you'll be a part of the all-star team. So when a playoff comes, you, along with other referees that did well at their positions, would be a part of the all-star referee team to do the playoffs. But this game right here, they did it a little differently. They pulled the all-star quote-unquote team together for this game right here. And you can tell that these guys were not clicking at all. Questionable calls all night long. Obviously, the Alvin Kamara play when Jalen Smith lunged himself at Alvin Kamara and almost completely knocked him out. I mean, even a play with Cole Beasley when he was clearly short of the first down, knee was down. I'm talking about maybe even 1.5 yards short. They called it a first down. I'm kind of skeptical about the catch with Michael Thomas. I mean, the helmet-to-helmet calls, the legal hands to the face, and most importantly, the last play of the game for the Cowboys that meant something. The pass that was a fade route to Amari Cooper, they called pass interference on Marshawn Lattimore. Terrible. Absolutely terrible. But at the end of the day, that's not the reason why the Saints lost. The Saints lost this game because, honestly, the Dallas Cowboys had more energy than the Saints. And I think that the Saints were not ready for what the Dallas Cowboys was bringing. Here you had a team, once again, that was hearing all week long how they were going to get blown out like their NFC East counterparts, like the Giants, like the Eagles, like the Redskins. They were hearing this all week long. And these guys came out there and they played inspired football. Now, in the first half, the New Orleans Saints had 0 points. In the first half, Drew Brees only had 39 yards passing. I mean, honestly, man, this game right here is one of those games where Sean Payton, after he shows this tape, he needs to burn it. I think back in the day, I think when they won the Super Bowl, they said Sean Payton had a funeral outside the practice facility, and they did like some kind of commemorative funeral, saying goodbye to last season and embarking on a new season. They need to do the same ritual for this tape. This was the worst game that I have seen Sean Payton call all season. Sean Payton, clearly, in the first half, he showed his defense, in my opinion, that he did not trust them. He seen Dallas going up and down the field, and they scored 10 unanswered points, and he thought that that game was going to be like that all night. So what did he do? In a goal line situation when he should have called out Will Lutz, one of the most clutch kickers in 2018. Will Lutz has been so automatic, man, this season. You have to sometimes take the 3 points. Now I understand that the Saints are the best offense statistically in the NFL this season, and you have to count on your guys. But sometimes when you see that every yard, every play is of some type of importance, you got to take the points. Sean Payton did not take the points, and what was the score at the end of the game? 13-10. And I understand, too, that we are upset that the offense only scored 10 points. But you have to be excited about what you saw defensively in the second half if you are a Saints fan. I understand we want the team to score 40 every game, and this is the NFL that the NFL wants. Teams scoring 40 points every game. One team scored a touchdown, another team scored a touchdown. They want the Los Angeles Rams versus the Kansas City Chiefs. This was what type of NFL they want. But when you can't have a game like that, if you are a New Orleans Saints offensive player, your defense has to bring it home for you. Cameron Jordan, oh my goodness. Cameron Jordan had 2.5 sacks in this game. The defense had 7 sacks. They generated 2 turnovers. In most cases, when you have 7 sacks, when you disrupt the quarterback like the Saints did defensively in the second half, you normally win the game. And the New Orleans Saints defense showed me a lot. Out of all the teams that they have been talking about, the question was being asked, who is the best team in the National Football League? Who is the team that can win it all? If you have any doubt in your mind that the Saints are the best overall team out of the upper echelon of the NFL, something is wrong with you. These guys went out there and they pitched a shutout in the second half. Dak Prescott, for the most part, did most of his damage in the first half. At the end of the third quarter, the Saints defense only allowed 16 yards. Ezekiel Elliott did absolutely nothing for the majority of the game. And neither did Dak Prescott. I mean, he made a couple plays with his legs, but for the most part, man, the team was still in it. And it was all because of the defense. Now, we have to talk about Drew Brees. I understand that Drew Brees, he's our guy. He's our man. We love when he plays well, but we got to criticize him as well, man. Drew Brees looked uncomfortable all night long. He was missing all night long. This is by far one of the most inaccurate games that I have seen Drew Brees play. Not that I'm saying that Drew Brees is getting old. I'm not saying that Drew Brees is falling off a cliff. I'm not going that route. I am not heading for the hills. But at the end of the day, Drew Brees did not look comfortable. There was a game a couple years ago in the Superdome when the New Orleans Saints played the San Francisco 49ers, and this was like during the time when the 49ers were just starting to reach their stride. And I think the 49ers had 6 sacks against the Saints. Drew Brees, throughout that game, was under duress, and he was missing wide open guys, and he wasn't hitting guys where they needed to be. And I think that this was one of those games where Drew Brees just didn't look comfortable, man. You have to credit the Cowboys defense because they had the defensive scheme that they had the recipe, man. They had the recipe. They cracked the code that no other team could crack this season. Drew Brees was 18 of 28 for 127 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Very un-Drew Brees-like in this game. I know for a fact that he's going to bounce back, but this game, once again, they need to burn this tape. Michael Thomas, you can tell he was very upset. I went back and I watched the game again, and you can tell like he was being held throughout the game. You know, they were being very physical with the New Orleans Saints receivers. And quite honest, for the exception of Michael Thomas, to me, those receivers out there, they look soft, man. They look absolutely soft. Now, they are young. They need experience. You got Traquan Smith out there. I mean, you got Keith Kirkwood. I mean, you got Dan Arnold. These guys have to go through these type of growing pains, but they did look kind of soft. I'm not going to lie. And I will go on record and saying, maybe this was a game that the Saints should have activated Brandon Marshall. I think they should have activated him in this game because Brandon Marshall is a receiver kind of similar to Michael Thomas. Now, he's 35 years old. He doesn't have that speed he had when he was in his 20s. But Brandon Marshall can be physical. He is not going to allow anybody to bully him. And I feel like if Brandon Marshall was playing in this game, maybe the Saints could move the ball a little bit more than they did. I feel like the offensive players on the Saints team, I feel like they were punked out. Not all of them, but a good majority of them were punked out. And you don't need that, man. But at the end of the day, I think this may be the best thing that happened to the Saints. It is so easy for you to go out here when everybody's singing your praises to think that you are the best thing since sliced toast bread. But sometimes, you have to excuse my French, you got to get knocked down on your ass in order for you to put things into perspective. And that's exactly what the Saints did. This is not going to be one of those cases where, you know, they collapse, because I don't see that happening. Drew Brees is not going to allow this team to collapse. There's too much of a we in this team instead of a me for me to feel like this team is going to go in the opposite direction. And now I got to address this. This is for all of these Saints fans who became Saints fans 10 weeks ago. All the Saints fans that are just happy to dance in front of their television sets and get an umbrella in your house and do the Benson boogie. This is for you. It's amazing to me how you all can be so arrogant, so cocky, so full of yourselves when the team is winning. But all of a sudden, everybody wants to be a GM. Everybody wants to be an NFL analyst when they lose. This was not one of those games where the sky's falling. The Saints just lost a football game. They are still 10-2. As of right now, they still are number one in the NFC. We don't know what the Detroit Lions can do to the Rams. I seen the Detroit Lions beat the New England Patriots. No, the New England Patriots don't have an offense like the Rams, but they have the best coach in NFL history in Bill Belichick. And they went out there and they put on a great performance. We don't know how this is going to turn out. If the Rams just so happen to slip up on Sunday, the Saints are in the driver's seat yet again. So calm down, okay? There's no need for no drastic changes. I understand Eli Apple looked absolutely trash, but you have to understand this too. They had film on Eli Apple. The guy played for the Giants 3 years of his career. They had tape on him. They understand what he can do. They understand his tendencies. So you know they were going to pick on him. So come on, man. Eli Apple has played okay for the last couple weeks, man. The guys, he can have a bad game. Players have bad games. The Saints offensively did not scheme well for this Cowboy team. Let it go. Move on. 24-hour rule is in effect. We're on to Tampa Bay. You remember that press conference that Bill Belichick had, and every time the media will ask him a question, he'll say, we're on to Cincinnati. We're on to Tampa Bay. I understand that you probably have that obnoxious Dallas Cowboy fan that you work with, or the obnoxious Dallas Cowboy fan that you live with, but let it go, okay? If the Dallas Cowboys just so happen to find themselves in the playoffs, in the postseason, and they have to go on the road to the Superdome in the divisional round of the NFL playoffs, you better believe that the New Orleans Saints will not allow this to happen again. So, the thing about this whole game, long story short, the moral of the story is the New Orleans Saints had a Week 13 game. The Dallas Cowboys had a Super Bowl. But this has been the State of the Saints podcast. Once again, thanks for checking out the podcast. Follow the State of the Saints podcast on YouTube. Go to youtube.com, search State of the Saints podcast. Hit that subscription button and hit that bell for notifications. And also follow the State of the Saints podcast on Twitter at SOTS Podcast 8. SOTS Podcast 8. And thank you all very much once again for supporting the podcast. Till next time, all I have to say is, who dat?